I'm JD. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and please hit like. And I'm going to undergo a strip down of this very beautiful MJ Roche Cochrane, Ontario pocket watch. A little bit of history. This is a Swiss company that made movements and sold them in Switzerland and largely in North America. It looks like a copy of a Waltham or something. It's a very high grade movement. It is I believe it's lever set, but it's a 23 joule movement. Let me just see if this is lever set or not. Yes, it is. There's the lever right there. So this would be railroad grade pocket watch, lever set, and leave it to beaver lever set. See if I can get the face on here again a bit. I don't need to have this on solid. I just want to flip this around and have a look at the movement. So this is the movement here, and it is a 23 joule gorgeous movement. It says grade CCCR. I still haven't determined what that means. It's got raised gold center setting. It's got a jeweled barrel. It only has one screw missing here that I'll have to address. The rest of it is in pretty good condition. It's got a these wheels might have been flashed gold. I'd have to see and check, but they could be flashed gold, not sure. And it's got a very interesting regulator. I've never seen a regulator like this before. So we're going to strip this watch down and clean it up. I made a previous video on the brand name and etc., but it's a Swiss-made watch. But to strip this down, the first thing I'm going to do is remove the hands. I know the power is off the watch right now. I let this run down. And when you're putting the back on a watch, you don't want to cross the threads, so you want to be very careful. I also want to put a glove on to work on this watch, but not when I'm holding the case right now. So we'll just deal with this. I'm having a fun time trying to put the case back on here. It's always fun when you're trying to do something in front of a camera. Is that on? There we go. So that's going on right now. And when you get the case on, you just check before you screw it down. You just check all the edges to make sure that all the edges are in there. So no issue at all. And the first thing I'll do is align the hands for removal. So to align the hands, I pulled out this is a lever set, so I pulled the lever out with my thumbnail, and this should allow me to turn the hands. I like to turn the hands in the direction that they need to go when they're running, so I'm not going against anything. It's probably a good policy if you're working with clocks. I did some carriage clock work. You don't want to go backwards on a carriage clock or any clock, especially when they've got a ring. And you can see how the hands are not aligned properly. So there we go. So somehow someone did work on this watch before, and it's not at 12 o'clock. So interesting. It's always interesting for me to see the results of other people's work. So I'm going to put the glove on and get going on this. And just before I start, the loop I'm using here is called an Airy loop, A-R-Y. It is a very high-end loop, and the folks at Rolex use this loop. It grabs the glasses, and the glasses I have are reading on the top. So I've got probably 2.5 on the top. In the bottom I've got around 5, 3 to 5 actually, not sure, I can't remember. Anyway, what I did was I went to my optimist and he said, "You'll be fine." That was a joke. Anyway, I went to my optometrist and I said, I'm seeing spots. He said, "Have you seen a doctor?" I said, "No, just spots." Oh my God, stop the jokes. Anyway, I said, I want to be able to see down on my bench, so I need a lens that's this distance from here to here. And I measured the typical working distance I have from without any optics on, and they measured the actual strength of the bottom lens. So they're readers, so they split. So I've got the top for reading computer screens and the bottom for doing watch work. So it was a good idea. And then I put the lens on for doing close-up work. This is a ×5 lens, so I can get in pretty damn close. So there you go. I'm going to remove the hands on the watch first, and let's get this job going. Now, to protect the face, you want to put a piece of plastic over the hands like this. And this is just light plastic you would have in a little tiny plastic bag. And I use very wide hand removers, and this spreads any pressure downward so you don't crack the face. I don't need to necessarily grab it in the center, but this is a size 18 watch, so it's pretty big. So I can grab this one in the center and pop the hands up like that. And then once you have them popped up, you grab them and then place them away, out of the way. I learned this years ago. If you don't place things out of the way, they tend to end up on the floor. So you need to do that. Now the smaller hands, I often use screwdrivers to remove the smaller hand and pivot the screwdrivers because it's very difficult to get hand grabbers in there. So I'll just go down like this and go inside and then pivot. And that should be enough to lift the hand up. And there we go. That lifted the hand up. And that ensures I don't break anything. So you just go clockwise and counterclockwise with that and then put the hands out of the way. And I'll put that all in a storage container later on. So this watch is owned by Douglas, so I shout out to Douglas. I do use a Bergeron gelled pad when I'm working on watches. So it's max quality, and I put a glove on the hand that's going to be doing any touching of the watch. So I find that I can't really use a screwdriver properly with a glove on, so I don't do that. So it's just the way I work. Anyway, put all the parts aside as you're working on them. So this gelled pad works really well. I don't believe I can pull the crown out on these because this is a lever set watch. So I think to take the watch movement out, I just have to undo the movement screws here very carefully. And I'm going to pick the right screwdriver for the right job. And also, you don't want to accidentally mar the movement at all. So you got to be very careful when you're taking the screws out that you don't put too much downward pressure on there. And I'm not sure who the last watchmaker was. I could look in the back of the case. We'll do that in a second. But I'll take the case screws out. I like the rounded case screws like this. I don't like the ones that are half screws. They're kind of a pain in the butt to work with. So the rounded ones are nice because they grab it. Half screws kind of go all the way around and they stop, and that causes an issue usually. Now I don't know for this watch if it's got a dust cover around the movement or not. We'll see in a second here. So this should allow me to just roll the movement out. And we'll see, I don't have any other case screws in here. So it should be able to just roll the movement out. There we go. It's starting to come out. I can actually see a dust cover in the movement, but the movement should come out. Let me try pulling pulling this out again to see if it actually does come out. No, it doesn't. So it should roll out. They can be stubborn at times, right? Oh, there we go. There we go. I gotta be very careful here. Now, I'm looking at this and it looks like the dust cover came off the watch movement, which is unusual. So I've got to make sure that this dust cover, this ring, should be around the movement and not around the case. So this could be the leftovers from the previous watchmaker. And I'll need to pull that past. I'll need to pull that past here to get this out. There we go. So that's the dust cover. That would go over the movement and not around the case. So I'll move the dust cover out of the way. So that's good. That was what was causing the problem. So the last person who assembled this watch did that. And I can't really tell who the last person was. I can see if there are any marks on the movement on the inside, and there are 1, 2, yeah, there's a few marks on this. Let me just turn off the light on my camera, and that might give me a better look at it. Yeah, so there's a mark right there, there's a mark up here, there's a mark here, and there's a mark here. So I have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 watchmakers have worked on this in the past. So there you go. Now it's a Regina, which is a North American watch company. Regina gold filled. So it's not solid gold, it's gold filled. And likely based on the quality of the watch. Oh, there's another mark down here. And these marks were catalog numbers. These likely weren't dates. Although you never know, with some of the watchmakers might have not followed that. And so that would be 1945. Yeah, and the other one would be 1940. It's hard to tell. But they're normally not dates. They're normally catalog numbers for repair. Trying to get this to focus a bit here. Yeah, 240AX7R. So that's not a date. So we've had quite a few watchmakers dig into this watch in the past. Likely a long time ago. So when I'm working on pocket watches, the first thing I like to do is remove the balance so it's not going to cause me any pain. You got to be very careful when you're removing the balance and the hairspring. I do like to have the balance cock. I use a Bergeron 7010 stick here. I wrote it on the back because it's starting to fade, but this stick has this flat end piece and a pokey piece on the other end. And it's a mock material. It's probably some kind of fiber, but I can put a little bit of pressure on here because it's on a pad. It's on the gel pad, so it's not going to cause an issue. So I either remove the face, then the balance, or the other way around. It just depends on what I'm up to that day. And then the back, right back there, you can see there's a groove right there. So I got to get a smaller screwdriver, and I'll put that in the groove and then rotate it, and that should lift the balance cock up a bit. There we go. So that's relieving the balance cock from the studs that are holding it in there. And then I'm going to get a balance holder here, and this one here is a made in China one, so it's not bad. I could use my Dunker tank one. I do like the way this grabs onto the balance, so you've got some pretty direct control over that. And so when I remove the balance, I'll grab the balance from the inside like this. Make sure I've got a good grip on it, and then tip it like this. And if it doesn't come out right away, I'll get another pair of tweezers here and help myself. Like that. That way I'm not putting any pressure on the balance when I'm removing it. So it's all about being careful. And then I place this down here, and I can see how far this is away, so it's got to move in a little bit more. So I'll hold on to the balance while I'm moving that in this direction. Let me just eyeball it here. I think that's probably about right. And then I can lower the balance onto the balance tack. Of course, finding the hole is always fun. There we go. And that's going to go down like that, and then the balance will rest on this surface here. Now I can screw that up a bit, and that way it supports the balance a bit better. So let me just lift this up and see if I can raise this up just a bit. How about right there. A little more. And there we go. And what I want to do is provide a good support for the hairspring, so it's not pulling down on it too much. And then I can take the, I put a little chunk of Rodico there because I always take the screw for the balance cock and put that together. And then the whole shebang goes into a case like that. I don't want this to move around a lot, so I'm going to put a piece of Rodico on there too, so it stays steady. And that way I don't get this thing flinging sideways or whatever. So I can just take a piece of Rodico and stretch it out. This is old Rodico. The old Rodico. Stretch it out and then put it down right there. And then when I put the balance tack down, I just push that down, and that's not going anywhere. That's steady now. And so this is unlikely to fly around. And if I wanted to be super safe, I could put a little tiny piece of Rodico on the tip there, and that would make sure that everything is absolutely steady. You don't want the balance cock for some reason to spin off, and for this to lose its position. You don't need to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'll show you. There we go. And that keeps the whole mechanism secure. So it's not, if it's bumped, if I bump it by accident, nothing's going to happen. And then I'll, of course, put a lid on it and then get that out of the way. There we go. And that, my friends, is taking the balance out. Now I'm going to start putting a few parts in the in this movement holder here. So I usually put the case screws in the center, and then I put the hands off to the side. And because the hands are so delicate, I make sure that nothing else goes in this side that could disrupt the hands at all. So, because the hands are delicate. And just drop them in like that, and then snug them just a bit onto the side. And then I've got this ring here, but this ring will go in with the case. So I'll put the case and the ring in another holder, and not in here where the parts are going to be for the watch. So that's kind of what I do. Now the next job here is to actually remove the dial screws so the dial can come out. And I got to get close and dirty for this. I usually use my yellow screwdriver. I won't bother with the dimensions. The yellow's an 80, so I use the yellow screwdriver, and usually that works. And if you're lucky, the screws come out without a problem. You don't need to back them all the way out. You can back them part way out, and the dial feet should come out. Now I have another video online of me soldering dial feet. So the technique for soldering dial feet if dial feet are missing. And I had to do that for a watch as opposed to a pocket watch, but it's a lot easier to do for a pocket watch than it is to do for a watch. So once I have those out like this, I can convince the watch to come up here. The glove kind of gets in the way here, because without the glove you can use your fingernail to knead your way in here. I can also use a larger screwdriver, put it on the edge and just edge it out like that. And you kind of have a feel for where it might still be touching. There we go. So that's it. That's the face, and the face is in really good condition. And there's the dial feet, no problem with them at all. And I'll put those in with the watch parts that I have, and I'll show you how I've configured that again. And then what I do here is I'll take the center wheel, or the center wheel out for where the cannon pinion is, like that. and the dial washer comes out with that. And then I'll take the minute wheel out. Now the minute wheel is not going to come out this time because it's being blocked by this here. There is a question, like I likely will not take all of this apart. I've talked to other watchmakers. I used to strip all this down. I can clean it with it in place and let it dry for a day and then oil it. And it's not going to be an issue at all because it doesn't affect the actual performance of the watch, and it allows me to oil it. The issue when you take these apart, the very small springs, is that you could very easily lose these springs. I have another friend who's a watchmaker who does not remove these. I removed these for years. I used to strip this down and take it apart, and I stopped doing it, I think, about, I don't know, 2 years ago maybe, because I was very concerned. So this is the cannon pinion. I usually have a cannon pinion remover for that, so let's get that out. So this is a device I use for removing the cannon pinion, and it grabs the cannon pinion and pulls up on it while it's secure on both sides. So the trick is to make sure it's secure on both sides as you put this over the cannon pinion like that, and then pull up on it like that. You drop that down, and there it is. So this is a safe way of removing the cannon pinion without too much pressure on it. Put that into the watch case here. Let me flip this around. So now I can take this watch and I can put it in a movement holder. So the movement holder I use is this one. So I use the Myers number 58 movement holder. It's called your third hand. In this movement holder, there's a button on this side right here, and that allows you to depress the button and move this back and forth. And then when you grab the watch, and I ensure that I don't grab it where the lever is, because it's lever set. So I make sure the lever is on the outside, and it's not going to grab it. And when you grab that watch, you push in like this, and the lever is over here, not in the way. You're not going to get crunched by the movement holder. When you screw it in on this side, it's screwing in the spring as opposed to the back. So the spring is providing the tension on this side here, and not the actual physical 1-to-1 ratio of bringing this back. So it pretty much saves your watch from any problem there. So that's that. I do want to make sure there shouldn't be any power on this movement at all. But what I'll do is just take this and move it slowly. It looks like there's a bit of burping here, so it looks like there might be a little bit of power on this movement. So I may have to take some power off of this movement, which means I need to basically use a bench screw and then remove the power by getting the ratchet out of the way. So you see how I can do that. Let me show you how that's done. So here I've got a bench key. This is called a bench key. You need a set of 3 of these. And I'll put the bench key in the winding mechanism like that, and you can see how that would actually wind. So I want to put a little bit of pressure on it like I'm winding it, and then the click over here has a small hole in it, and I move that this way and then let the mainspring wind down a bit. So there's not much left on that one because it was run out pretty nicely. So that's that. So that's done. So now there's no power on this watch anymore. So I can take some more of the wheels off. So now I'll remove the crown wheel. Now the tricky part of the crown wheel here, this is the wheel here, is that you don't know from this movement whether it rotates, the screw rotates left or right to loosen it. Normally lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, but in this case here, the screw actually moves to the right to loosen it. So it moves to the right to loosen it. So you got to really be aware. If you force it too much, you could break the head off the screw. And if you break the head off the screw in this watch, you've got a problem. So as you can see, this is very magnetic. So this thing needs to be demagnetized. I won't bother doing that right now. I'll do that after. But this obviously needs to be demagnetized because it's sticking to my screwdriver. So it's either the screwdriver or the screw, one or the other. The screwdrivers do get magnetized from time to time. So now I just remove this ratchet wheel. I'm going to use 2 tweezers to do this. And these tweezers I have, the brass tweezers, will not mar the gears, which is really nice. So I just take that gear, I spill the center out of it, right, and then keep the gear and all of that together. Now this guy here, he's got 2 screws here and 1 missing. So you'd normally just raise this up with 1 single screw in the middle, but because it's a 3-screw deal here, I got to be careful. The tricky part here is that these screws need to be able to go back in to screw this watch down. And I want to make sure I've got the right size screwdriver to do this. So I'm going to try my yellow here because these are very small. My watch keeps binging because it's my ring system, even though I turned it off. Oh no, it's actually text messages. So this text message is from Douglas, who is the owner of this watch, and he's thanking me for working on it. And so I'm just going to move these screws over to my, I'll show you where this stuff is later. But I want to have this in the storage compartment here and grouped up nicely. I may hand clean this watch. Normally I go to my cleaning machine to clean it, but because of the vintageness of this watch, I may hand clean it. It's not unusual for me to actually hand clean a watch. Trying to pry this off very carefully. It may not have been taken off for hundreds of years. Yeah. It looks like this center jewel actually comes out, which is kind of odd, but it does. So I'm just going to use a piece of Rodico. And pull that up. So that's the center jewel for the barrel. That goes right in there. So let me put that on the side here. I find that to be a bit odd, by the way, that the center jewel would come up like that. And then this plate here should come right up. This gear should come straight up. That's the barrel arbor right there. So I can tell as I move the barrel that the arbor is moving too. Yeah, this is going to be a bit tricky, so I'm going to go away and see if I can figure this out and come back. Well, this is a very big handicap here. This will not come off. So this will not come off. I've tried prying underneath a bit. I've tried using Rodico to suck it off the top. It will not come off. This watch, I do not want this watch to be broken. I do not want this part to be broken. So what I may end up doing for this watch is actually stripping. This is an odd thing for me to do. I've never had this problem before, and I don't want this watch to be damaged. So I may take this plate off here and clean all the gears, and then lean sideways and using lighter fluid, clean all of the plate here and avoid this area here. And most of it can be cleaned, and the performance of the watch should still be good, but I won't be able to take out the mainspring and clean the mainspring, which may or may not be an issue, I'm not sure. But I'll have to hand clean the rest of it, and of course I'll end up charging a lot less for the cleaning because I can't get at this, and so I'm guilty there, even though the rest of the cleaning effort is pretty much the same, right? If anybody's got comments on this, please let me know. I'm got a watchmakers meeting at noon, and during that meeting I'm going to ask the folks what they think they could do to get this off. I don't know if there's any other way of pulling this up. I've tried Rodico, like I said. If you typically take Rodico like this, put it down on the gear, the ratchet gear, and then pull straight up like that, and it's got quite the adhesion, right? So that's lifting everything up, and still this gear will not come up. So I do not want to force it. So it's not worth the thing getting broken or damaged. So there's an update for you. I think I'll stop the video and just call it part 1 at this point, and then get some feedback from you guys from this video to see what else could I do if you had this problem before.